Hello and thanks for joining us on Me and My Golf. We're your coaches Piers and Andy. We hope you've had a fantastic weekend. It's a Monday, that means it's time for the Impact Show. Andy, what are we talking about?
Right, today we're going to be sharing you some of the Tour Pro secrets to an amazing short game. Don't go anywhere, let's take charge of your game.
So the theme for meandmygolf.com this month is all about being on the golf course. Now Andy, we're obviously on a golf course, and what a beautiful golf course
nice one, by the way.
this is. So this is Engadine Golf Club in St. Moritz, Switzerland. We're actually out doing some filming and some coaching, so make sure you check out the other videos. We haven't played this course yet. We only got here yesterday, so really looking forward to getting out there. So, Andy, on the course, talking about short game, okay, lots of questions about that. Obviously, we want to get those scores lower, and short game is really a good place to start with that. So Alan Waterworth has said, I wonder what Andy and Pierce's thoughts are on the hinge and hold technique as advocated by one of golf's top short game players, Phil Mickelson R. I've recently tried it and found it very effective. Okay, so what we are going to do is first of all talk about what hinge and hold is. In our opinion, it obviously can work. Phil Mickelson's doing it amazingly well, and obviously for yourself, Alan, it's working well. But in our opinion, there could be something which is a little bit easier for you a little bit more consistent for you, a little bit easier for you to use, and actually a little bit more like the tour players use as well. So actually using that club properly. So before we get into that though, hinge and hold, Andy, what is it?
Okay, hinge and hold. Let's go through what Mickelson does so well then. So hinge and hold basically is creating some set on the way back in the club, so some wrist angles on the way back, and what he does, he retains some of that angle on the way through, but he feels like he actually sets the club and holds those angles through the club, hitting down into the back of the ball and getting this sort of very much a downward strike Pierce, and we've seen him play those shots and he gets a lot of sort of action on the golf ball there. So it's basically setting the club and holding those angles for a little longer and really driving down hard into the back of the ball, which we see him do.
Okay, so I mean, and look, it works perfectly well for him. The only problem we sometimes find some problems with that, which we'll come to in a moment. But we talk about this secret that the tour players have got. What is that secret, and what are they actually doing?
Well, look, I think what Mickelson does is fantastic, but not all the other tour pros do that. And I think the key thing for what the majority of tour pros do, and what you can do, is really utilise the bounce on the golf club and using the sole of the golf club to create a consistent strike, but also give you more margin for error. Now, we're going to talk about the problem with the hinge and hold and how it could potentially hurt you. Now, as soon as we lean the shaft forward, okay, what it does, it takes off the bounce on the golf club. So it brings in a sharp leading edge Pierce. Now, the problem is here, if we hit the ground, it's going to dig in, you're going to have a duff shot, the ball's not going to travel very far.
So you need the ball first, effectively.
You need to hit that golf ball first. So the margin for error there is so small. So with Mickelson, a very highly skilled golfer with lots of practice, lots of time in his hands, lots of skill.
And maybe Alan,
it sounds like it. He can do this because he's got that level of skill and time to practice. Now, for the average golfer, they haven't got the level of skill of Mickelson. They haven't got as much time to practice. So it makes sense that we need something that's going to give them more margin for error and just make it more consistent overall. So we need to use the bounce of that club, and to do so, we don't really want too much shaft lean when we strike the golf ball. We want to get it to a much more neutral position where this can actually bounce, glide across the ground. We're going to show you how easy that is to do in a moment, and actually give you a much better chance of hitting that golf ball consistently.
Yeah, and that's really good explanation there. And I think one thing that we've been doing recently as well, which has backed this up, is James Ridyard, who's a short game coach in the UK, works with tour pros and amateurs, actually is doing a study at the moment on the yips. And he has really found that these kind of movements that we're seeing in hinge and hold, they can cause the yips. So, you know, if we believe in that, and we don't really want that, do we? So just quick then, show off why these excessive wrist angles can cause the problem.
Okay, so the excessive wrist angles can cause the problem because what happens is, if you think of what we've got here, we've got this radius of the golf swing where the club is obviously on the ground there, which we want to return to. Now, if I create too much set in the wrists, now the problem is here, if I swing down and hold the radius, hold the shaft lean here, my radius is very short. So what I need to do now is somehow recover that. So we often see a lot of knee drop Pierce, a lot of those legs to get down to the back of the ball, instead of really being able to use the full length of the club, less angles, and returning to a good radius where we can use the club and slide across the ground.
So just hit one anyway, because obviously Alan is wanting to know how we would do this. Often we would put the ball back in the stance to do this. to help get that sort of contact down
I
on
don't like playing these shots, Pierce, because it's for me, I know it's just a hard shot to play. I'm expecting to see this come out low. Like I say, plenty of set on the way back. And you can see big divot, hit into the ground, run on a little too far, which I'd expect because I'm de-lofting the club. And you can see there I've took a divot there, and the club didn't really move through, did it much?
Yeah. And I think the key is, because of this shortening of the radius, you need to make sure the ball does go back, and obviously then you go high loft. So Andy, how are you going to use the bounce better on the golf club?
Okay, a couple of key things we're going to do. We're going to focus and change our focus to actually not hitting the golf ball. Far too many people are trying to hit the ball, which sounds strange. We want to actually hit at the ground. And if we hit at the ground, we can hit at the ground before the golf ball, as long as we are hitting it with the bounce. If we can do that.
You can hit the ground before the ball and still hit a good shot.
Yeah, exactly.
That's mind-blowing to people watching this now, maybe for the first time. So you're gonna have to prove it in a minute though, obviously.
I will prove it, don't worry. So we're going to hit the ground, not the ball. And what we're going to find is if we can hit the ground slightly before the golf ball, the club will glide across, okay, and collect the ball nicely. And when you do that, there's a sort of freedom in the golf swing that you don't have to be so precise like the hinge and hold. So what we're going to really focus on, that's the first thing, changing your focus to actually hit at the ground, not at the golf ball. If you can hit at the ground, you have much more margin for error to strike it. The second thing is minimizing those wrist angles. So from my setup in my swing now, I don't want to create too many wrist angles in the golf swing. So I'm going to really focus on keeping the wrists very passive, not too many angles, and allowing the club to just literally glide and hit at the ground. And you'll really feel it slide across the surface, which is really key.
Okay, so hit me one of those and then we'll talk about the thought on how you can do that.
Okay, so I'm literally just going to focus on hitting the ground, not at the golf ball. And that one was a little ground first.
But look at the shot.
But I know that if I can do that, and that's the great thing about this, if it's slightly off, it can still be a good shot.
The hinge and hold would have finished there, by the way, if he'd have hit the ground in the same place. Okay, so what's a really good takeaway for people on how to practice this technique?
Okay, great drill for you. We're going to use, this is something that Luke Donald does so well in his golf swing, and we're going to focus on just the lead wrist. So if I take my setup here, left hand only, all I'm going to do is make a swing, and I'm going to really rotate my lead hand so the watch faces away from me. Now as I swing through, I'm going to rotate it back to hopefully where it points to the target, and on the way through, it's going to face behind me. I'm not really creating any angles in the wrist this way or this way, Pierce. Which
There'll be a bit, but you're not working at that eye, not excessive. Good.
So focusing on really getting some rotation of this lead forearm here back and through will really help you to use the bounce and not create too many angles.
Okay, so focusing on the watch, I like it.
Put that to the test then, Pierce. I'm going to see if I can knock it inside that one. That was a bit disappointing.
You need to do better than that one. That was not so good. That was better. And even that one there was probably a little bit before the golf ball. Ooh, pretty happy with that one. So guys, look, just obviously change that concept and then think about how you can get that technique. So think about hitting the ground and exposing the bounce to that club, and it's definitely going to help you become more consistent with that short game. Now, as we say, August, it's all about on the golf course lowering your score. So post your comments down below on how we can do this. And also, if you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button.
So we hope you enjoyed the video. Now, Pierce, look, if the guys watching this want to improve their golf even more, what should they do?
They must click on this link in the corner, which takes you straight to meandmygolf.com. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. As we know, August is all about on the course. So we know it's going to help improve your golf. We'll see you there.